Good morning, Wall Street winners. It is Tuesday, July the 9th, and as we look to the futures markets in the Bloomberg app at about 20 minutes after 8 o'clock, what we'll see is that the futures for all three indices in the US are in the green. The Dow's up 32 points. The S&P 500 up about 11 and the NASDAQ up about 66. So it looks like we're going to start the day in the green. And my focus today is on something that is not necessarily being discussed yet, but I think it should come out fairly soon based on the meetings and different discussions taking place in front of the Senate and Congress today from the different Fed secretaries. So, for example, Fed Chair for Supervision, Michael Barr, speaks this morning at 9:15, while Fed Chairman Powell is going to testify in front of the Senate Banking Committee at 10 a.m. with Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Giving a separate testimony at the House Financial Services Committee. And then Fed Governor Michelle Bowman is due to speak today at 1:30. So there's a lot of talk to the US government from the Fed and members of the Fed and the Treasury today. And one of the things that the Fed is considering is a rule change to something known as GSIBs. And those are global systematically important banks. And it's the GSIB surcharge. So think about this as money that banks have to maintain or capital that they have to maintain in the event of different systemic risks. So, ensuring that banks won't go bankrupt, as we saw, say, with Silicon Valley Bank and previously with Lehman Brothers in the past. And I mean, there's a lot of examples of banks that have gone under. And so, what the Fed has done is they've put guidelines and measures in place and a way to analyze or calculate those capital levels. And they're thinking about changing those. And if they do that, that will be a positive, very positive impact for probably 8 to 10 of the largest Wall Street banks. So think of Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. Those types of organizations will get the biggest benefit because they'll have the biggest amount of capital freed up. Other banks will benefit as well. It'll just be a lesser amount of capital that they'll benefit from. So if this does pass, and there's no date that I'm aware of as to when it could change or pass, but if it changes this year, we should see a spike in the stock prices of those big banks. So that's something to simply be aware of. As we go into the day today, I'm not really looking at retail or healthcare. I am keeping an eye on JB Hunt. If JB Hunt comes in below or opens up in the 157 range, I'm going to add some JB Hunt to my portfolio because I do think it'll bounce back at even at 158.04. I think it's an attractive purchase. But if you look at the 1 month on JB Hunt, it has dipped down below this level and it has gotten down into the 156 range. Certainly, if it takes a dip like it has here down to 153, I would be buying it because it's going to recover off of that low for sure. But there's a fair bit of volatility in this stock, as you can see in the chart, and you just want to wait for those dips. It also has earnings coming out in 7 days. I'm not sure I want to be holding this stock over the earnings period. I think I would sell if it drops and then goes up prior to earnings. I think I would sell before earnings. Undecided at this point, but I would be leaning towards getting rid of that position and de-risking. Oil has been taking a beating. Oil is down 44 cents. It's below $82 a barrel. That's probably not going to bode well for oil stocks. You can see Valero was off another almost $5 yesterday. So I think it's still a good time to pick up any of these refiners on a dip, as they have been, and some of them are on a dip right now. If you have a 30 60, 90-day hold duration, and you're willing to hold them into the fall, because I do think as they come up to earnings, and earnings are coming up for these companies. So Valero, the 25th of July is when we're going to see earnings. Exxon is going to report on between the 26th and 30th, so similar in week. Chevron is set to report on the 2nd of August. So I do believe we're going to see some positive earnings out of these that will move the stocks forward in an upward trajectory. But they are getting hit right now with crude coming down. I think this is going to correct. I think it's a short-term thing. So if you are holding some of these positions and you're down a little bit, don't worry. I do think this is going to come back. We're just going to need a little bit of time. If we get down into tech, tech continues to be strong, but you have to be careful at where you're putting your money in the tech sector right now. What was beaten up recently and took a bit of a hit was NVDA, and it looks like it's making a bit of a comeback. So I think we're going to see money move back into NVIDIA. I think this is going to get into the $140, $150, $150 range. Meta is also doing quite well. I do expect a bit of a pullback in Meta down to the low 500s or high 490s, and I would wait for that before getting in. I did say when it was at 440, closed at 440 on Friday. Yesterday on Monday, I would not have bought in at 440, and it did drop $10, so that would have been some good investment advice to follow. Tesla is making a big comeback, so it's interesting with Tesla to see that happening, with some of the news coming out of the company being viewed as more positive based on where we were 6 months ago. And then we get down into financials. And I think this is where this has been quietly moving upwards without a lot of talk in the overall market narrative around financials as a whole. We saw Visa, when they announced their last quarter results, up above 272, and it's now down below 266. So I think this is going to climb further as more and more people are putting more and more purchases on Visa cards, and probably not paying off those balances full in the majority of cases throughout North America and even potentially globally. SoFi took a huge dip yesterday. This was a very attractive stock to buy into at the end of the day, and if it opens at that 630, 635 level, I think it's a really attractive acquisition as well. It's just taking a hit momentarily, where the rest of the financials are actually gaining ground. A couple of those being Morgan Stanley, now up in the $100 range, and Goldman up in the mid 460s. And then finally, JP Morgan up in the 205s. And JP Morgan announcing Friday morning, so we'll be watching that closely as that comes out Friday. So look for volatility. Look for the trading envelope as it starts to develop in the first 30 minutes of the day, and look for what the pre-market activity has been doing to see what the range is that's really kind of being established in these stocks. And then, depending on the stock you're looking at, if we're talking about the financials, look to what the Dow and S&P 500 indices are doing as well. If those are trending upward and the percent they're up is more than the percent of some of the financials, it's likely that the financials may correct. The other thing to look for in a group of financials is if one of the names, so if you're looking at JP Morgan, Goldman, and Morgan Stanley, if two go up and one goes down, look at the one that's gone down. If the index is going up with the other two, and try to wait for that to turn around, hit bottom, and start to move up. It's likely you'll get a bit of a recovery bounce there, and you'll be able to make a small percentage gain, which is the methodology that we're striving for and recommend on this channel. Good luck with your trades today. If you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel. Let someone else know that's interested in the stock market and understanding market fundamentals and interested in putting their money to work for them. And leave me a like.